If you have taken a DNA test with Ancestry.com, you may have been notified that you can find DNA matches through Ancestry ThruLines. What are they and how are they going to help you with your genealogical research? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Howdy, I'm Devin Noel Lee with Family History Fanatics, where we believe if you're not having fun doing your family history, you're doing it wrong. We help you understand DNA, start climbing your family tree when you're a beginner, and write your family stories along the way. If this is your first time here to our channel, be sure to hit the red subscribe button and the bell next to it so that you will be notified when we release a new video and when we go live every other Friday. Ancestry ThruLines was a new feature released on the Ancestry platform to service its members who've taken DNA tests, and this was released in February 2019. By July, all of Ancestry subscribers now have access to this tool if they have taken a DNA test. Even with the rollout, Ancestry ThruLines is just something people have heard of. So what do they mean and how do you make sense of them? Well, the concept is, what if users who take a DNA test and build their family tree on Ancestry could take their pedigree chart, combine it with their match list, and then Ancestry will use the power of technology to then provide you with paths between you and your DNA matches without you doing all the heavy lifting. Sounds good, doesn't it? So this is an Ancestry ThruLine. It is a visual organizer to suggest paths between you and your DNA matches through a line through you and your common ancestor. If you've used DNA circles before, Ancestry ThruLine overcomes many of the limitations that service provided. I know I only had a couple Ancestry DNA circles, but now I have multiple Ancestry ThruLines. The goal is to leverage the power of people who are working to build their family tree, who have connected DNA to that tree, to match new users and experienced researchers to new discoveries. But you probably are asking, how do I get to the Ancestry ThruLines? I know I did. It took several months for me to get access to the Ancestry ThruLines, but you shouldn't have the problem if you follow these steps. But the key is you have to link your DNA results to a person in your family tree, and we'll come to that later. If you have already completed that step, this is how you're going to access your DNA ThruLine. There are several places you can access Ancestry ThruLines. If you are a subscriber, then you're going to come to your home page and you're going to go click on DNA, your research results summary. And in this third box, you will find a path to the ThruLines. Additionally, anywhere on the site, you can click DNA ThruLines and then get to the ThruLines from that menu dropdown. As I said before, if you have linked your DNA results to a tree, there's another place that you can access your Ancestry ThruLines, and that is through your pedigree chart. Let's hop over there to the one that I am linked to. So this is me linked on Ancestry ThruLines, but if I hover over my profiles, I see a standard pop-up. But if you will come over and click on this icon, a pop-up will show up on the right side of your screen, and it will tell you that you can turn on the icons for your Ancestry ThruLines right here. And then did you see what happened? Now all of a sudden, I have these circles. These are places, access points to my Ancestry ThruLines. Now I can click on a profile, and now I have ThruLines right here. I click on it says, do you want to see your through lines for George? And then I will be taken to that page. Now, as I said before, you can get to your Ancestry ThruLines suggestions from your Pedigree Chart and the pop-up that comes here. But the place that you can't access your Ancestry ThruLines is from the individual pages of the people who have ThruLines. At least not at the filming of this video. So as you can see, nowhere on this profile, I have a lot of records. I found him in city directories for Henry Joseph, but nowhere on this page do I see the ThruLine link. I have to get it either from that pedigree view or from the DNA menu or the DNA portal page. Now let's go back to the profile page for your ThruLines. ThruLine grid, I don't know what they're calling this page, but it's a generational view of your ThruLines. So you have your parents right here, and notice as I scroll up to a next generation, I don't have to forget which generation I'm on because the generation label will stick right here. This helps when you scroll further down your tree and you're in your third or fourth great grandparents and there's a lot of them, or potentially a lot of them. And so Ancestry will just stick, just like that, stick the label of the generation right there as you scroll on by. Unfortunately, these pictures are really, really big. So when you are using your browser, use the zoom out tool for Chrome, for Safari, and then you can view your generations a little bit better. I just really think the pictures are way too big for what you're trying to see. Now, how far back do your generations go? They go all the way back. There is, let's zoom back in just a bit so we can read. I'm at my 5th great grandparents, and that's as far as Ancestry goes back, which is a really good thing because if you have watched Andy's video about how you're only related to 120 ancestors, that's essentially the 5th generation. If you haven't watched that video yet, be sure to check the pop-ups or the link in the description. Now, how is this different than a pedigree chart, you may ask? Aha, good question. So it's different because unlike a pedigree chart, Ancestry is comparing your DNA to the DNA of others and then looking on your trees to see if they can find a common ancestor, and then Ancestries, we're scrolling, will then attempt to suggest a potential ancestor that you don't have on your tree. Now, when you get an Ancestry ThruLines, a couple things you'll notice is that you'll see your common ancestor, and then you'll see different people who've taken a DNA test, as well as yourself, and how you're related. The other thing will happen is Ancestry will go up to a common ancestor that's in multiple people's trees and then look for new DNA matches and how they connect to you. So here was my common ancestor for myself and those other individuals, including my brother. Here is the new common ancestor, and then I have multiple paths to not only my DNA cousins, but also how they get to me. Notice I have a white box here, and I have a white box here. These are people who are already in my tree because I know that they are children of my 3rd great uncle. I do not have these people in my tree, but Ancestry ThruLines says, hey, I think these people are related to you, and this is how they're related to you. That's the beauty of the ThruLines. One of the things you cannot do from your ThruLines pages is when you see, oh, look, for Virginia Lee author, I want to go ahead and add her to my pedigree chart into my tree, my database. You can't do it. What you have to do is take this information, evaluate it, and then go back to your family tree, to the profile pages, and add your person in that way. Now, if you're like me and you have quite a few established individuals on your tree to multiple generations, then maybe you just want to filter to just the people you have linked to in your tree. Or you may want to filter to just your potential ancestors. Now, did you see how I did that? There is, let me zoom in just a little bit more for you. There is this little drop down box. It says filter by potential ancestor right now. Then you have the ability for the people who are in your linked tree, or then you can just have everybody in one solid scrolling mess. Okay, it's not a mess. But again, the pictures are really, really, really large. I wish they were smaller. Now, how can you tell the difference between an ancestor that's already in your tree and a potential ancestor? Well, Ancestry did a few things. If you see a solid box, like I do for Anna Murray Geisler, then this person is already in my tree. When you see a box, regardless of whether it has an image or just an icon, when you see a dash line, you see the dash line here? When you see that dash line and then the words potential ancestor, then this is a suggestion that Ancestry is providing you of perhaps someone that is your fifth great-grandfather. Now, another thing that you cannot do on ThruLines is, let's go to my potential ancestors. Now, I have worked repeatedly to get people to realize this person is not my Charles Gordon's father, but yet it keeps showing up. So we're going to talk about accuracy in a future video, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But one of the things I wanted to point out is you cannot accept a through line or a potential ancestor. You cannot reject one because you never want to see it again. It's completely wrong. And there's no way to ignore one. What do I mean by ignore? Well, you cannot filter just to your grandparent lines. You can't just see all of your Zumstein relatives and all of your Long relatives or your Geisler relatives. Granted, it'd be really strange if you had all of those branches. We might be related, but you get the idea. So your paternal grandfather, you can't just filter to his direct ancestors. You can't filter down to just the paternal grandmothers. And because of that, some of us actually have lines that, not that we don't like those lines, we're just not climbing those trees for whatever reason. We're more interested to other lines. So one of the things you can't do, you can't say, you know what, I really don't want to see Thomas Clayball or Nancy Clayball, and they matches that way. Love you guys, but I'm working on the Townsend line. Like, I really want to know anytime there's a match to these guys, or maybe I'm working on Charles and Jane's line. I just want to focus on them. There's no way to go, for right now, I really don't want to pay attention to them. So right now, all you can do is just kind of scroll past it, but it would be a feature that we can have in the future. So how do Ancestry ThruLines trigger themselves? Well, you have to connect one DNA kit to one person in a family tree on Ancestry. You can't do multiple kits to the same tree. So there will be a link for step-by-step instructions on how to link one person's DNA test to your family tree in your account. Then there's a couple other things that you need to do in order to have the best success with having DNA ThruLines appear. Not only do you need to link a DNA test to a tree on Ancestry, but that tree will provide you with the most success if you have 3 to 4 generations in your tree. What does that mean? So if you're starting with yourself, you have your grandparents, your parents, your grandparents, and your great-grandparents. As much as possible, when you put names into the tree, if you want to have the most success, you want to have identifying pieces of information. Names, the more complete, the better. birthplaces, birth dates, death places, and death dates. The more complete the information, the more success Ancestry will have in recommending possible through lines for you. And finally, make sure you add in those extended relationships. So aunts, uncles, nephews, and so forth. Now, if you're an adoptee and you cannot match yourself with anybody else, you won't have as many DNA through lines as you would like. The other thing you need to do in order to ensure you have the most success is your tree has to be either public or private searchable. If it's just private, then the through lines don't work as well for you and others on the platform. Now, when you initially link your tree to a DNA test, it can take up to 2 to 3 days for the through lines to trigger. Now, Ancestry says 1 to 2, but it's been my experience 2 to 3. Additionally, keep in mind if you make changes to relatives, let's say you discover that you have the wrong parent for a cousin, a great aunt, and so forth, when you make changes to their parentage, it could take up to 2 to 3 days for your through line to reflect those changes. Now, you may be wondering, how often does Ancestry check for new common ancestors and through lines? Well, the answer that the Ancestry gives is every time you see a new DNA match who is linked to a searchable tree, that it has at least 3 to 4 generations of ancestors, just like you're supposed to find as much as possible, there will be an opportunity for through lines to find a new common ancestor or a new link through ancestors you have already found in common. You'll just add a new person to that tree. It's pretty cool stuff. But remember, when you're making massive changes or when you're linking yourself to a tree, that can take 2 to 3 days. So the short answer is check back often for new opportunities because people are being tested every day, the results are coming live every day, and people are realizing they need to make public trees or private shareable trees connected to their DNA for DNA through lines to be activated. Now, this video was designed to just basically give you the bare bone facts. What is a through line? How do you trigger access? And what are the strategies for success in order to ensure that you can get as many through lines as possible? I hope that gave you enough information to start accessing your through lines, but are you having trouble getting them to start appearing on your account? If so, let me know in the comments because guess what? It took me 4 months to try to figure out how to get Ancestry through lines on my own tree, and that was beyond frustrating. I had to develop a couple hacks to make it work and finally trigger through lines to add. So if you're frustrated, let me know. We'll see what we can do as a community to get them access to you. Now, I'm definitely going to analyze through lines and tell you the benefits and the pitfalls in future videos, so stay tuned to our channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified when they're released. So as we say goodbye, be sure to check any of these videos, and we'll see you in the next episode.